The crystalline halls of the Concordat command ship glowed with soft blue light as the council of elders gathered for what might be their final meeting. Chancellor Varric stood at the center of the chamber, his forearms trembling slightly as he watched the holographic display showing yet another world. Falling to the Crethaxian swarm, the insectoid leader had seen 12 planets consumed in the past 3 cycles. And nothing they tried could stop the relentless advance around him sat the representatives of 23 species. Each more terrified than the last, the Velians, beings of living crystal who could manipulate light itself, had already lost their homeworld, the Morphians. Masters of biological engineering who could reshape their own bodies, found their greatest weapons useless against an enemy that absorbed and adapted to everything, the Zenari, whose minds could link across star systems. Discovered that the swarm's hive consciousness was far stronger and infinitely more hostile. We have tried everything, spoke Elder Thesha, her crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. Our energy weapons are absorbed, their shields adapt within moments, our psychic attacks only make them angrier. The mathematical probability of our survival decreases by 7% each solar rotation, added mathematician Krell, his gray skin pulsing with bioluminescent calculations at current projections. The swarm will reach our core worlds within 40 cycles. We will be extinct within 60. Varric closed his multiple eyes. Knowing what he had to propose, and dreading the reaction, he had spent the last 10 cycles researching forbidden archives, reading about species the Concordat had contacted and then quickly isolated, the quarantine files, the restricted sectors, the death worlds. There is one option we have not considered. Varric said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Every elder turned their attention to the Chancellor, hope and fear mixing in their alien expressions. The humans, Varric. Continued immediate chaos erupted, Elder. The schist crystalline form flashed red with alarm. 3 other council members stood abruptly, their chairs scraping against the polished floor. Shouting filled the chamber in a dozen different languages and telepathic frequencies. Absolutely not, roared Commander Thax. The military representative, have you forgotten the first contact incident? They nearly destroyed our diplomatic vessel because they thought we were hostile. Their aggression ratings are off every known scale. They come from a Class 12 death world, Desha added, her voice sharp with fear. Do you understand what that means? Their planet actively tries to kill them. The gravity alone would crush most of us. The weather patterns are catastrophic. The predators. They have predators that hunt for sport, Varric. The humans themselves are apex predators. They evolve through violence and warfare. Varric raised his primary arms, calling for silence when the chamber finally quieted. He activated another hologram. This one showed Earth, the blue and green world that had been quarantined in Sector 7 for the past 30 cycles. Yes, they are from a death world. Varric acknowledged. Yes, they are aggressive by our standards. Yes. We isolated them because their very nature frightened us, but consider this. We need warriors right now. Not philosophers. We need beings who understand violence and survival. The swarm does not negotiate, does not surrender, does not fear. What we need are creatures who also do not fear death. You want to unleash one monster to fight another, Krell said. But his tone was thoughtful rather than accusatory. I want to give us a chance to survive, Varric replied. I have studied the human quarantine files extensively. Yes, they are dangerous. Yes, they are unpredictable, but they are also loyal, innovative, and remarkably resilient. Their literature speaks constantly of protecting the weak, of standing against impossible odds. They have a saying, we do not go gentle into that good night. They fight. Always, even when fighting seems futile. The council members looked at each other. Telepathic conversations flickering between those who could communicate that way. The weight of their decision pressed down on everyone present. To contact the humans was to admit that the enlightened, peaceful Concordat had failed. To ask Deathworlders for help was to acknowledge that perhaps their philosophy of nonviolence and diplomatic solutions had limits. If we do this, we cannot control what happens. The humans may save us, or they may decide we are not worth saving. They may demand payment we cannot afford. They may see us as weak and take what they want. Or they may surprise us. Varric countered the first contact incident. Did anyone actually read the full report? The humans fired on our scout ship because they detected what they interpreted as weapons charging. They thought we were preparing to attack. When they realized it was a misunderstanding, they immediately ceased fire and offered aid. We refused that aid because we were too proud. Too afraid, he pulled up another file, displaying communication logs from human border stations for 30 cycles. Human ships have patrolled the quarantine boundary. Not once have they attempted to breach it. Not once have they attacked our monitoring stations every 3 cycles. They send a simple message. Humanity requests status update on diplomatic relations. They want to talk to us. We are the ones who refuse. The chamber remained quiet as the elders absorbed this information finally. Commander Thax spoke. His voice resigned. If we do this, we must be prepared for the consequences. The humans will see us as we truly are. Weak, desperate. Unable to defend ourselves. That is not a position of strength from which to negotiate. Then we do not negotiate. Varric said firmly, we ask for help. Honestly and humbly, we show them the swarm. We show them the devastation. We tell them that if they do not aid us, the swarm will eventually reach human space as well. This is not just our fight anymore. The vote took less than a minute to complete. Out of 23 council members, 18 voted to contact the humans' fear of the swarm, outweighed fear of the Deathworlders, of the 5 who voted against. 3 did so only because they believed humanity would refuse to help species that had shunned them for 3. Decades Rex wasted no time. He composed the message himself. Keeping it simple and direct, he included tactical data on the swarm, casualty reports. In a holographic plea, he ended with words that cost him his pride but might save his people. We were wrong to fear you. We need you. Please help us. The message was transmitted to New Brasilia, the largest human colony world in Sector 7. Then the Concordat waited on New Brasilia. Admiral Sarah Chen was reviewing supply requisitions when the communication arrived. She was a compact woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many years of peace, interrupted by memories of the brief. Violent war humanity had fought against itself before achieving unity. Chen commanded the United Terran Navy's 3rd Fleet, a position that had become almost ceremonial since the Concordat had established the quarantine when the alien message appeared on her screen. Chen watched it 3 times without speaking. Her second-in-command, Captain Marcus Webb, stood beside her, his jaw tightening as they saw the devastation the swarm had caused. They shunned us. Webb said quietly, called us barbarians, locked us in Sector 7 like we were diseased. And now they want our help. Chen was silent for a long moment. Watching the hologram of Chancellor Varric making his plea, she thought about 30 cycles of isolation, of humanity's wounded pride. Of the young officers in her fleet who had never seen real combat, she thought about the right thing to do, activate the fleet. And Chen ordered all ships. Combat readiness, full mobilization. Webb looked at her in surprise. Admiral. Chen smiled, and there was something fierce in that expression. Their right to fear us. Marcus, we are from a death world. We are dangerous, but they're about to learn what that really means. She turned to face her second officer fully. It means when someone asks for help, we answer. It means we fight not because we love violence, but because we refuse to let innocent people die. It means we're scary as hell to our enemies, but absolute hell to anyone who threatens those under our protection, even those who rejected us. Webb asked, especially those. Chen replied, because that's what makes us better than our worst instincts. Contact Chancellor Varric. Tell him the fleet will arrive in 48 hours. Tell him humanity remembers what it means to be afraid, to be alone, to need help. Her smile grew colder. And tell him to watch very carefully, because he's about to see why Deathworlders survive. The orders went out within minutes all across New Brasilia and the 6 other human colony worlds. Warships began powering up. Crews scrambled to their stations. Marines loaded weapons that hadn't been fired in anger for decades. Engineers ran diagnostics on systems designed for one purpose: destruction. Humanity was going to war. And the galaxy was about to remember why some species earned the title Deathworlder, not because they loved death, but because they absolutely refused to surrender to the crystalline halls of the Concordat command ship. Varric received Admiral Chen's response. He read it to the assembled council, and for the first time in cycles, He saw something other than despair in their faces. He saw hope mixed with terror. The Deathworlders were coming. The space around Refuge Station rippled with impossible geometries as the human fleet dropped out of faster than light. Travel Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the dreadnought Indomitable. Watching the Concordat vessels through the main viewport, her tactical officer was already running scans. And the readings made several of her bridge crew exchange worried glances, Admiral. The Concordat defense fleet consists of 47 vessels, reported Lieutenant Kowalski. Average mass approximately 60% of our cruiser-class ships. Energy signatures indicate shield systems at approximately 400% the output of our defensive screens. Weapons appear to be primarily directed energy, possibly plasma-based or exotic particle beams, and their armor? Chen asked. Minimal MAM sensors indicate hull plating averaging 15 centimeters thick. Composition appears to be some form of crystalline composite. Probably designed to refract energy weapons. Kowalski paused. Admiral, with all respect, one solid hit from our railguns would tear through those holes like paper. Chen nodded slowly. That's because they've been fighting an energy-based war for who knows how long. They've forgotten that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel to the Concordat flagship. Let's introduce ourselves properly. The holographic display shimmered to life. Showing Chancellor Verex and his command staff, the aliens looked exhausted, their various forms showing signs of stress and sleep deprivation. Verex's compound eyes widened as he took in the human bridge crew. Admiral Chen, Verex said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into comprehensible English. Thank you for responding to our call for aid. We are in your debt. Save the gratitude until after we've done something worth thanking. Chen replied bluntly, show me everything you have on this swarm. The good, the bad, and the terrifying for the next hour. Concordat tacticians briefed the human command staff on the Crithaxian swarm. Chen's people listened in silence, taking notes. Asking pointed questions, the swarm was a hive mind species that consumed organic matter. To fuel its expansion, its ships were grown rather than built, their hulls composed of layered chitin and bone. Its tactics involved overwhelming numbers and rapid adaptation. They learned frighteningly fast, explained Commander Thax. The Concordat's military leader, we deploy a new weapon or tactic, and within 2 or 3 engagements. They have developed countermeasures. Their evolution cycle appears to operate in real time. What about conventional tactics? Asked Captain Marcus Webb, who had joined the briefing via hologram from his ship. The destroyer relentless flanking maneuvers feints. Concentration of force. The Concordat officers looked confused. We utilize standard formation warfare. Thax replied, our ships maintain optimal spacing for shield overlap and energy. Weapon convergence, we engage at maximum effective range to minimize casualties. Webb and Chen exchanged glances. You fight by the book, Webb said every time. The same way there are established protocols for space combat, Thax said. Sounding defensive, tested over thousands of cycles of Concordat military history, which is exactly why the swarm beats you, Chen said. Not unkindly, they know what you're going to do before you do it. You're predictable. She leaned forward. Admiral Webb.
How would you fight this enemy?
Webb grinned with maximum unpredictability and overwhelming violence, ma'am, if they adapt to our tactics. We change tactics if they grow armor against energy weapons. We use kinetics if they expect long-range engagement. We close to knife fighting range. His expression hardened, and we hit them so hard and so fast that they don't have time to adapt before their debris. The Concordat officers looked disturbed. Several of them were communicating telepathically. Their concern obvious. Chancellor Verex raised one of his 4 hands. Your approach seems very aggressive. That's because it is. Chen confirmed. You called us because you needed warriors. Chancellor, now you're getting them, but understand this. We fight to win. We don't fight for honor or glory or to make ourselves feel noble. We fight to destroy the enemy and protect the innocent, if that offends your sensibilities. Say so now. Verex was quiet for a long moment. No, said finally. We surrendered our right to be offended. When we asked for your help, do what you must. Admiral, just please give us a chance to survive. That's all I needed to hear, Chen said now. When will the swarm arrive? Our scouts detected their advance fleet approximately 6 hours ago, Thax reported based on their current speed. They will reach the refuge system in 14 hours. Fleet composition appears to be approximately 200 vessels, ranging from frigate equivalents to 3 dreadnought-class bioships. 200 ships versus your 47 and our 38, Chen mused on paper. We're badly outnumbered, she smiled. Good, I prefer it when the enemy gets overconfident. Communications. Transmit Fleet Order 7 to all human vessels. Tell them we're going hunting. The human fleet began moving before the Concordat could respond. Breaking formation and scattering across the system, the alien observers watched in confusion as human ships took up positions that made no tactical sense, hiding behind asteroids, lurking near the system's gas giant, positioning themselves along likely approach vectors with weapons powered down to minimal signatures. What are they doing? Asked Elder Desha, who had joined the command channel. This formation provides no overlapping fields of fire. No shield coordination. They have abandoned every principle of fleet combat. They're setting an ambush, Breck said quietly. Understanding dawning, they are not going to fight the way we fight. They are going to make the swarm come to them. On ground of their choosing, 14 hours later, the swarm fleet entered the refuge system. The bioships were hideous things. All twisted bone and pulsing organic tissue, their hulls glistened with some kind of secreted slime. And their weapons ports looked like gaping mouths lined with crystalline teeth. The fleet moved in a coordinated mass, heading directly for Refuge Station where the Concordat fleet waited. The Concordat ships powered up their shields and charged their weapons. Falling into their standard defensive formation, the swarm responded by accelerating, clearly preparing to overwhelm the defenders. With superior numbers, it was a tactic that had worked on 12 previous worlds. Then, the human fleet opened fire. The swarm's sensors barely registered the threat before the first railgun. Slugs arrived, magnetic accelerators hurled projectiles at 30% of light speed, each slug massing several tons and carrying kinetic energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. The rounds punched through swarm bioships like they were made of wet paper, the sheer impact force ripping hulls apart and sending fragments spinning through space by the ancestors. Breathed Commander Thax, watching his tactical display in shock. What are those weapons? Kinetic kill vehicles, reported Lieutenant Kowalski cheerfully. We accelerate large metal slugs to ridiculous speeds and let physics do the rest. No energy signature to adapt to. No shields that can deflect them, just raw, unstoppable momentum. The swarm fleet tried to reform, but the human ships were already moving. The Relentless and 5 other destroyers broke cover from behind the gas giant, their drives burning at accelerations that would have liquefied most Concordat species. The human ships didn't slow as they approached the swarm formation. Instead, they launched missiles, hundreds of them. Are those nuclear warheads? Elder Desha asked, her voice rising in horror. Nuclear weapons are banned by 17 different Concordat conventions. Good thing we're not part of the Concordat then, Chen replied calmly. Those are tactical nukes. 50 kilotons each. Watch and learn. The missiles penetrated deep into the swarm formation before detonating. Spheres of nuclear fire blossomed in the vacuum, vaporizing smaller bioships and crippling larger ones. The electromagnetic pulses disrupted the swarm's coordination, breaking their hive mind connection temporarily. Individual ships began drifting, confused and disoriented. That was when the Indomitable arrived. Admiral Chen had held her dreadnought in reserve, waiting for the perfect moment. The massive warship dropped out of FTL at point-blank range, a maneuver that violated every safety protocol the Concordat had ever written, and opened fire with every weapon at Passasedrians. Thundered missiles streaked through space. Point defense lasers designed to intercept incoming fire instead targeted the swarm's weapon emplacements at close range. And then the Indomitable did something the Concordat had never seen. It rammed the dreadnought's reinforced bow, designed to push aside debris and survive micrometeorite impacts at relativistic speeds, crashed into a swarm dreadnought at thousands of kilometers per hour. The bioship's hull crumpled like aluminum foil. The impact would have destroyed a Concordat vessel. But human ships were built by Deathworlders who understood that sometimes you had to hit the enemy with your ship. Marines, you are go for boarding action, Chen ordered calmly. Even as her ship shook from the impact, hostile vessel is crippled, seize it before they can scuttle. The training facility on Refuge Station's largest moon had been constructed in just 4 days. Human engineers worked alongside Concordat builders, creating something that married alien elegance with human practicality. Admiral Chen stood in the observation deck, watching the first joint exercises with a critical eye below her. Human instructors were attempting to teach Concordat warriors how to fight. Dirty Lieutenant Akari Tanaka faced a squad of Velian soldiers, crystalline beings who stood nearly 3 meters tall and glowed with internal light. They were beautiful to watch, their movements graceful and precise. Each Velian carried weapons that could bend light into cutting beams or create holographic duplicates to confuse enemies in Concordat warfare. They were considered elite troops. Show me your standard assault formation. Tanaka ordered. The Velians moved into position with practiced ease, creating a geometric pattern that maximized their overlapping fields of fire, their shields interlocked, forming a nearly impenetrable wall of refracted energy. It was textbook perfect. Now hold that position, Tanaka said. She pulled a small device from her belt and tossed it into the middle of their formation. The flashbang grenade detonated with a thunderous bang and blinding light. The Velians' crystalline bodies acted like prisms, multiplying the light internally. All 7 warriors collapsed, their sensory organs completely overloaded. 3 of them cracked slightly from the shock. Leaking luminescent fluid? What was that? Demanded squad leader Velshar, struggling to his feet. His internal light flickered erratically. That was chemical. Explosives. Primitive weapons. That was a $20 training grenade that just took out your entire squad. Tanaka replied bluntly. The swarm doesn't care if your formation is pretty. They care if you're dead. She walked among the recovering Velians. You fight like you're on a parade ground. Everything neat. Everything by the rules. The swarm has no rules. We fight with honor. Velshar protested. We maintain discipline and coordination. These are principles that have guided the Concordat for however long it took the swarm to figure out how to beat you. Tanaka interrupted. Look, I get it, your way of fighting works great against other Concordat species who follow the same rules, but the swarm doesn't follow rules. And right now, neither do we. She softened slightly. You want to survive? You want to protect your people? Then you need to learn to fight like your life depends on it, because it does over the following days. Tanaka put the Velians through training that horrified their sensibilities. She taught them to set booby traps. She showed them how to fake retreats to lure enemies into kill zones. She demonstrated the effectiveness of attacking from concealment, of targeting enemy weak points rather than engaging in fair combat. Most shocking of all, she taught them when to run. Retreat is not cowardice. Tanaka explained after a particularly brutal simulation where half the squad had been killed because they refused to withdraw from an unwinnable position. Retreat is survival. Survival means you can fight another day. Learn from your mistakes and come back stronger. The swarm can afford to lose ships you can't. Velshar struggled with these concepts. His entire military training emphasized standing firm, maintaining position, dying with honor if necessary. But as the training continued, something began to change. He watched human marines train nearby, saw how they moved with no wasted motion, how they used terrain and surprise to multiply their effectiveness. He saw that humans didn't win fights by being stronger, they won by being smarter and more adaptable. Your people evolved as prey animals. Velshar said to Tanaka one day during a break, We researched humans. After you arrived, you were hunted by creatures stronger and faster than you some of us were. Tanaka agreed. Others were the hunters, but yes, our ancestors had 2 outsmart things that could kill them easily, so you learned to cheat, Velshar said. But there was no judgment in his voice. You learned that winning was more important than fighting fairly. We learned that protecting our families was worth any tactic, any sacrifice. Tanaka corrected. Honor doesn't mean much. If everyone you love is dead, that conversation marked a turning point. The Velians began embracing the guerrilla tactics. Tanaka taught them. They started setting ambushes, using their light-bending abilities, not for direct combat, but to create confusion and fear. They learned to target swarm coordination nodes rather than engaging the strongest ships, and slowly, painfully, They learned that sometimes the honorable thing was to survive while Tanaka trained ground forces. Human engineers worked with Concordat shipwrights in orbit. The elegant Concordat vessels were being retrofitted with human weapon systems. And the results were both beautiful and deadly. Chief Engineer Rodriguez stood in the main hangar of the Concordat cruiser, Luminous Dawn, watching robotic arms install magnetic accelerators along the ship's spine. The Concordat chief engineer, a slug-like Morphean named Grell, observed with a mixture of fascination and horror. "You are drilling holes through our primary structural supports," Grell said, his translator rendering his chemical emissions into words. "This compromises the ship's integrity field." "Yeah, but it gives you railguns," Rodriguez replied cheerfully, "and trust me, the ability to punch holes through enemy ships is worth a little structural compromise besides. We're reinforcing the affected areas with carbine mesh C," he pointed to the installation crew, "stronger than your original structure and weighs half as much, but the aesthetics." Grell protested weakly. The Luminous Dawn was designed as a work of art. Every line, every curve serves both function and beauty. Your modifications are crude. Rodriguez looked at the vessel with a critical eye. "You're right. It does look kind of ugly now, but here's the thing. A beautiful ship full of dead crew is just inexpensive. Coffin, an ugly ship that brings everyone home, is the most beautiful thing in the universe." He clapped Grell on what might have been a shoulder. "Your ships are about to become hybrid warships, part Concordat elegance, part human brutality. They'll be unique. One of a kind, isn't that its own kind of beauty?" "Grell considered this if we survive," he said slowly. "Future generations will look at these vessels and see the moment when the Concordat learned to bare its teeth. Now you're getting it." Rodriguez grinned. The weapon systems weren't the only human contribution. Concordat ships ran on fusion reactors that were efficient, but relatively low-power. Human engineers introduced them to antimatter containment systems that could triple their energy output. The risk was enormous. Containment failure would vaporize the entire ship, but the reward was proportional. Concordat shields, powered by antimatter reactors, could withstand punishment that would have destroyed them before human. Tactical doctrine also began spreading through the Concordat fleet. Admiral Chen held daily briefings with Concordat commanders, teaching them concepts that seemed alien to their way of thinking. "You need to accept losses," Chen said during one particularly contentious meeting. "I know that sounds harsh, but warfare is about acceptable casualties versus mission success. You cannot protect every ship, every life. If you try, you'll lose everything, Commander." Thax bristled at this. "Every life is precious. Every vessel represents years of construction and crew training. How can you speak of throwing them away?" "I'm not talking about throwing them away," Chen said patiently. "I'm talking about making hard choices. Let me give you a scenario. You have 10 ships, the enemy has 50. You can either scatter your fleet and hope to survive individually, losing all 10 ships eventually, or you can concentrate 9 ships to cover the 10th. While it escapes with critical intelligence and calls for reinforcements, you lose 9 ships but save the war. Which do you choose?" The Concordat officers were silent, clearly troubled by the hypothetical. Finally, Elder the Chess spoke in Concordat doctrine. "We would attempt to save all 10 ships through superior maneuvers and shield coordination, and you'd lose all 10 when the enemy overwhelms." "You with numbers," Chen replied bluntly. "Look, I understand this goes against everything you believe, but the Swarm has beaten you 12 times because they're willing to sacrifice everything for victory. You need to be willing to sacrifice tactically to achieve strategic goals. Otherwise, you're just choosing to die slowly instead of quickly." The most controversial element of human strategy came 3 weeks into the training program. Admiral Chen called a classified meeting of the senior Concordat leadership and presented them with a proposal that made several of them physically recoil biological weapons. Chancellor Varick said, his voice flat, "You want us to develop biological weapons against the Swarm? They're a biological entity?" Chen pointed out their ships are grown, their warriors are organic, their entire infrastructure depends on biological MT processes. We have samples from the ships we captured. My science teams believe they can engineer a pathogen that targets the Swarm's hive mind neural structures. This is against every principle the Concordat stands for. Elder the Shah said, her crystalline body flashing red with distress. We do not create weapons of genocide. We do not engage in biological warfare. These prohibitions have stood for 10,000 cycles, and they're part of why you're losing. Chen said quietly, I'm not saying this doesn't bother me. It does. The humans have our own ugly history with bioweapons. We banned them too after we S. The warning came at 04:00 hours station time. When most of the fleet was in minimal crew night rotation, sensors detected spatial distortions 3 systems away the telltale. The signature of a massive fleet preparing to jump Admiral Chen was on the bridge of the Indomitable within 6 minutes. Still sealing her uniform jacket, Captain Webb's face appeared on the holographic display seconds later. How many? Chen asked without preamble, estimating between 800 and 1,200 vessels, reported Lieutenant Kowalski, his usual cheerfulness absent. Admiral. They've learned from the last engagement the swarm ships are deploying in dispersed formation, preventing our nuclear weapons from achieving multiple kills. They're also showing composite armor on forward sections. Looks like they're adapting to kinetic weapons. Adaptation time. 3 weeks, Chen said grimly. That's faster than our intelligence predicted. She pulled up the tactical display, showing their own forces 85 ships total. 47 Concordat vessels and 38 human warships against 1,000 or more. We're outnumbered at least 10-1, Webb recommendations. We can't win a straight fight, Webb replied bluntly. Not with these numbers, even with everything we've taught the Concordat. We're looking at total fleet annihilation within 2 hours of engagement, agreed. Chen zoomed in on the system map. Focusing on Serenity Prime, the inhabited world they were defending, 4 billion Concordat citizens lived on that planet. Refugees from worlds already consumed by the swarm? We need to change the battlefield channel. All command staff meeting in 15 minutes, and somebody wake up. Chancellor Varix, this concerns him too. The strategy meeting was tense. Every senior officer from both fleets crowded into the Indomitable's briefing room. In person or via hologram, the air smelled of recycled oxygen and fear. Chancellor Varix arrived with Commander Thax and several other Concordat leaders, their various forms showing clear signs of stress. The swarm is coming in overwhelming force. Chen began without preamble. Standard tactics will get us all killed, so we're not using standard tactics. She activated the tactical display. We're going to use Serenity Prime itself as a weapon. The room erupted in protests. Quickly silenced when Chen raised her hand. Let me finish. The planet has an unusually dense core with unstable gravitational fluctuations. Our geologists noticed this when we set up the ground installations. The planet is essentially a ticking time bomb given the right push. It could generate a localized gravity well strong enough to trap ships. Within a 250,000-kilometer radius, you want to destroy Serenity Prime, Varix said. His voice hollow. 4 billion of my people live on that world. We evacuated them over the past 2 weeks. Chen replied, every transport we had, human and Concordat, has been shuttling refugees to the outer colonies. I gave the order the day after our first engagement with the swarm. You didn't notice because we kept it quiet to avoid panic. Commander Thax checked his datapad, his eyes widening. She's telling the truth. The population centers are at 12% capacity. Mostly military and essential personnel. He looked at Chen with something like awe. You planned for this outcome 3 weeks ago. I planned for every outcome, Chen corrected. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. That's Deathworlder thinking. She returned her attention to the display. Here's the operation. We lure the swarm fleet into close orbit around Serenity Prime. Then we detonate precisely placed antimatter charges in the planet's mantle, destabilizing the core. The resulting gravitational collapse will create a temporary gravity well that traps the swarm fleet. Temporary how? Asked Captain Rodriguez from the heavy cruiser Defiant. Long enough for the planet to tear itself apart. Chen said flatly, the swarm fleet gets pulled into the collapsing core. Everything within the gravity well radius is destroyed, including any ships we use to keep them there. Webb said quietly. Chen met his eyes. Yes. Including the ships that hold them in position, we'll need at least 4 capital ships to act as anchors, vessels powerful enough to maintain position against the gravity surge and keep the swarm from escaping. They'll need to stay until the very end. The silence that followed was absolute. Everyone in the room understood what Chen was proposing. This wasn't a battle plan. It was a suicide mission. Disguised as a strategy, the Indomitable will be Anchor 1. Chen continued, I'll need 3 more volunteers. Capital ships only. Nothing smaller will survive the gravitational stress. The relentless volunteers, Webb said. Immediately, my crew and I have been itching for a real fight. Might as well make it count. The luminous dawn will serve, came Grell's translated voice. The Morphean engineer had somehow become the vessel's acting captain. After its original commander died in a skirmish, we Concordat have hidden behind philosophy and ethics for too long if this is what survival costs. We will pay it, a third voice spoke up. Squad leader Velshar. Representing the Velian warship Crystal Blade, we also volunteer. We have learned from human instructors that honor is not in how you fight, but in what you fight for. We fight for the future. Chen felt a tightness in her chest. She hadn't expected Concordat volunteers. Hadn't wanted to ask them to die acknowledged. She said formally all 4 anchor ships will need skeleton crews only. Minimum personnel to operate essential systems. Everyone else evacuates respectfully. Admiral, screw that. Lieutenant Kowalski said, you'll need full engineering teams to keep the reactor stable during the gravity surge. You'll need damage control crews when the swarm starts. Shooting back, you'll need every warm body you can get. He looked around at the other human officers. The Indomitable's crew stays. All hands, if we're going out. We go out fighting. Similar declarations came from the other volunteer ships. Chen wanted to argue, to order them to evacuate. But she knew it would be useless. She had trained these people too well in human determination and loyalty. Fine, she said. Her voice rough, but we evacuate all non-essential personnel before the operation begins. That's an order. She turned to Varick's chancellor. I need authorization to proceed. This is your world we're destroying. Your people's history. If there's another way, there is no other way. Varick's interrupted. You and I both know it. The swarm will not negotiate. Will not retreat if we try to evacuate the system entirely. They will hunt down every refugee transport, even if we save ourselves. They will continue spreading until they consume the entire galaxy. His compound eyes focused on Chen. You are asking my permission to commit tactical genocide against the enemy and sacrifice for ships full of brave warriors. You have it. Do what must be done. The preparations took 36 hours. Human engineers worked alongside Concordat scientists, placing antimatter charges at precise points in Serenity Prime's mantle. The mathematics involved were nightmarish. Too much explosive force, and the planet would simply shatter. Failing to create the necessary gravity, well, too little, and the swarm would escape meanwhile. The fleet prepared for the largest battle any of them had ever faced on the Indomitable. Captain Marcus Webb transmitted a message to Admiral Chen. The two had served together for 15 years. Through peace and the brief human-civil conflict, they were more than colleagues. They were friends, Sarah. Webb's message began. Using her first name for the first time in years, I want you to know that if I had to choose anyone to die alongside, it would be you and this crew. We're doing something that matters, something that will be remembered. Tell Earth that the fleet did its duty, and tell them that when the moment came. The Concordat stood with us. They learned well. Chen recorded her own message in response. Marcus, you stubborn bastard, I'm ordering you to survive this somehow. Find a way, because I'm going to need my second in command after this is over, and if you die, I'll find a way to bring you back just so I can kick your ass myself. Take care of the relentless. See you on the other side. Neither of them believed they would survive. Both sent the messages anyways. The swarm fleet arrived exactly when predicted, dropping out of FTL in a massive wave that momentarily eclipsed the stars. The bioships had indeed adapted. Their hulls showed layered armor plating, ablative sections designed to absorb railgun impacts. Their formation was dispersed, preventing area effects weapons from achieving maximum efficiency. They had learned from their defeat and come back stronger. The joint fleet engaged immediately. But this time, the strategy was different. Instead of meeting the swarm head-on, they conducted a fighting retreat, drawing the enemy deeper into the system. Closer to Serenity Prime, the swarm, sensing victory, pursued aggressively. They're taking the bait, reported Kowalski. From his tactical station, swarm fleet is entering the target zone. 92% of their forces are within the gravity well radius. Anchor ships move into position. Chen ordered all other vessels. Begin final withdrawal. Jump out the moment you're clear. We'll handle the rest, the Indomitable. Relentless, Luminous Dawn, and Crystal Blade moved into formation, creating a diamond pattern around Serenity Prime. The Swarm, recognizing the threat too late, attempted to withdraw, but human and Concordat ships threw themselves into blocking positions, sacrificing themselves to buy time. The massacre was terrible. Dozens of ships died in minutes, overwhelmed by swarmed firepower, but it was enough. The 4 anchor ships activated their maximum power tractor beams. Modified with Concordic gravity manipulation technology, the beams locked onto the largest swarm. 6 months after the Battle of Serenity Prime, the galaxy was a different place. The swarm still existed. Scattered hive nodes remained in 3 sectors, but their main fleet was broken without their overwhelming numerical advantage. The remaining swarm forces fell back to defensive positions. The immediate existential threat had passed. Though the war continued, the joint fleet, now reinforced with ships from both human and Concordat home systems, methodically cleared swarm infestations from liberated worlds. It was slow, dangerous work. The swarm fought with desperate ferocity, knowing they faced extinction, but for the first time in cycles, the Concordat was winning. Admiral Sarah Chen was not there to see Iton, the human colony world of Arcturus Station. A memorial service was held for the fallen. The ceremony was attended by thousands, humans and aliens, military and civilian, all gathered to honor those who died at Serenity Prime. A massive holographic display showed the names of every crew member lost on the 4 anchor ships. The list scrolled for nearly an hour. Commander Linda Okafor, who had assumed command of the human fleet after Chen's death, stood at the podium. She was younger than Chen, untested in comparison, but she had learned from the best now. She wore the Admiral's rank insignia, and the weight of expectation that came with it. Admiral Chen once told me that Deathworlders don't fight because they love death. Okafor said to the assembled crowd, "We fight because we love life too much to surrender it without resistance." She proved that at Serenity Prime, along with Captain Webb, Engineer Grell, Squad Leader Velshar, and thousands of others whose names we speak today. Chancellor Vorex stood beside her, his forearms clasped in a gesture of respect. Unique to his species, the Concordat owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid, he said. You answered our call when we had rejected you. You taught us to fight when we had forgotten how you died for our children. For our future, we were wrong to fear you. We were wrong to call you savages. The truth is, you are what we should have aspired to be, protectors, willing to pay any price. The ceremony continued with personal testimonies. Lieutenant Akari Tanaka, who had trained the Velian warriors, spoke about Velshar. She described how the proud, crystalline warrior had transformed from someone who fought by rigid rules into someone who understood that protecting the innocent sometimes meant breaking every rule. She read from a message Velshar had sent her hours before the final battle. You taught us to survive now. We choose to die so others may live. That is the final lesson. Yes. Sometimes survival means sacrifice. Chief Engineer Rodriguez, who had barely escaped the battle aboard a damaged transport, spoke about Grell. That slug-headed genius argued with me about every modification we made to his ship, Rodriguez said. His voice thick with emotion complained that we were ruining the aesthetics, destroying the elegance. Then, when the moment came, he volunteered without hesitation. He understood what we were building wasn't just a warship. It was a symbol of 2 species learning to work together, learning that survival matters more than pride. The testimonies went on for hours. When they finally ended, Okafor activated a new memorial structure built on Arcturus Station's highest peak. It was a collaborative work, designed by human and Concordat artists working together. The memorial depicted for ships Indomitable, Relentless, Luminous Dawn, and Crystal Bladderange in their final diamond formation. Each ship was rendered in exquisite detail, combining Concordat crystalline artistry with human metalwork. At the base was a simple inscription in both human languages and Concordat script. They stood together after the ceremony. Okafor met privately with Varix and the reformed Galactic Council. The Council had changed significantly in 6 months. 3 species that had remained neutral during the crisis had been expelled. Other species, impressed by humanity's sacrifice, had petitioned to join the council chamber that once excluded Deathworlders, now had designated space for human delegates. We have a formal proposal. Activating a holographic document. The Galactic Concordat wishes to offer humanity full membership and shared military command. The quarantine is officially ended. Humanity would have equal voice in all council decisions and would lead the reformation of Concordat military doctrine. Okafor studied the document carefully. It was everything humanity had wanted when they first reached out to galactic civilization 30 cycles ago. Recognition, acceptance, partnership, but she thought about Admiral Chen, who had died fighting for species that once rejected her people. We accept, Okafor said, but with conditions. Varrix's compound eyes focused on her intently. Name them first. The joint fleet structure becomes permanent, Okafor said. Human and Concordat ships train together. Fight together. No more separate doctrines. Second, we establish military academies on both human and Concordat worlds. Your people learn from us. We learn from you. Third, we share all military technology freely. Both sides, no secrets. No holding back our best weapons because we're afraid of what the other might do with them. That's a lot of trust you're asking for, noted Elder Jirai. As a Nari telepath who had replaced the Sha on the council, that's the point. Okafor replied, we just fought and died together. You want humanity in the Concordat? Then we do this right. No more keeping Deathworlders at arm's length because you're afraid of us. Trust us, or don't. But make a real choice. The council deliberated briefly. Varrix returned with their answer. We agree to all conditions. The Concordat needs to change. The old ways nearly destroyed us. Perhaps it's time we learn to be a little more dangerous over the following months. The transformation continued. Human military instructors spread throughout Concordat space, teaching at newly established academies that combined human aggression with Concordat technological sophistication. Young Concordat officers learned human tactics, while human cadets studied Concordat energy manipulation and exotic physics. The two approaches merged into something new, a military philosophy that valued both intelligence and ferocity, both honor and pragmatism. Lieutenant Tanaka was promoted to captain and assigned to run the primary training facility on the moon of Velia's Prime. Her students were both human and alien, learning from each other's strengths. The Velians proved to be natural guerrilla fighters once they got over their aversion to uncivilized tactics. The humans discovered that Concordat shield technology combined with human armor created nearly impenetrable defensive systems. One day, Tanaka watched a mixed squad, 3 humans, 2 Velians, and a Morphean execute a flawless assault on a simulated swarm position. They used combined arms tactics that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Humans provided covering fire while Velians used holographic deception to confuse the enemy. The Morphean infiltrated through a ventilation system, having reshaped its body to fit through impossibly small spaces. After the exercise, one of her human students approached Captain. Do you think we've changed them too much? The Concordat, they used to be all about peace and philosophy. Now we're teaching them to be killers. Tanaka considered the question carefully. We're teaching them to survive. She said, finally, they're still philosophers, still artists, still all the things they were before, but now they understand that sometimes you have to fight to protect what you love. That doesn't make them less civilized. It makes them complete. The joint fleet continued clearing swarm territories, and the battles showed the evolution of their combined doctrine. Human ships would charge in with overwhelming firepower, while Concordat vessels provided electronics, warfare, support, and shield coverage. Velian light warriors would create holographic duplicates of entire squadrons, confusing the swarm about where to concentrate their defenses. Human marines would board disabled swarm ships, while Concordat scientists analyzed their biology in real time. Looking for new weaknesses, the swarm adapted, as always. But now the joint fleet adapted faster. The biological weapon developed months earlier was finally deployed. Not to exterminate, but to disrupt the pathogen interfered with the swarm's hive mind communication, breaking their coordination without killing them. Confused swarm. Ships became easy targets for conventional weapons. It was brutal, but effective, and it saved millions of lives on both sides 3 months after the memorial service. The joint fleet cornered the last major swarm hive node in the Outer Rim. The battle was fierce, but brief, without coordination with their main fleet. The remaining swarm forces fought with individual desperation, but no strategic coherence when the final hive ship was destroyed. A cheer went up across the entire fleet, human voices and alien sounds. Mixing together in celebration of Peril stood on the bridge of her flagship. Watching the celebrations, she thought about Admiral Chen, wondered if her predecessor would approve of how things had turned out. The Concordat had learned to fight, the humans had learned to integrate with galactic society, the swarm was defeated. At least for now, and most importantly. Two vastly different civilizations had learned that their differences made them stronger. Not weaker, Admiral, reported her tactical officer. We're receiving transmission from Earth Priority 1, the holographic display activated. Showing the Secretary General of the United Terran Government, Admiral O'Caffer. Congratulations on your victory. I'm contacting you with news. The Galactic Council has proposed a new initiative, the Concordat Defense Force, a permanent military aliyah.